Hello everyone. Welcome back. Today, we've got some crucial news you don't want to miss. Let's dive right into the top financial headlines and break down what's happening. As we kick off a new week, let's take a look at the top 5 economic events you should keep an eye on. First up, on Thursday, the US will release its inflation data for September, including both overall and core inflation. This is definitely the big news for investors in global markets next week. The burning question right now is whether the US economy is in a Goldilocks state, not too hot, not too cold. If things are just right, it means lower risks for the market. Last week's jobs report blew past expectations, suggesting the economy isn't cooling off just yet, which means no immediate recession risks. But what about overheating? If inflation starts creeping up, we could have a problem. If Thursday's inflation data comes in within expectations or even a little higher, it could ease concerns about economic overheating. So, this report will be crucial in verifying last week's strong jobs numbers and assessing the current economic climate. The second major event to watch is the retail sales data, also coming out on Thursday. This figure gives us a clear picture of consumer spending in the US, which is vital since consumer spending accounts for nearly 70% of the economy. It'll also provide insights into whether the economy is too hot or too cold and reflect the real state of inflation. Next, we have important inflation reports coming from the UK and the Eurozone. On Wednesday, the UK will release its inflation data, followed by the Eurozone on Thursday. These numbers will help us understand the inflation situation across Europe better. Recent data indicated that inflation in the Eurozone was easing, raising concerns about a potential economic slowdown. If inflation remains below 2% in September, those worries could grow, possibly leading to further interest rate cuts in the Eurozone. The UK's economic situation seems to align more with the US, so if you're following the pound and the euro, keep an eye on these releases. Fourth on our list is China, where next week is a big one. The People's Bank of China will announce September's financial data, including new loan figures. We'll be watching to see if lending has picked up since previous months showed businesses and individuals were hesitant to borrow. Then on Thursday evening, US time, China will release its key macroeconomic data for Q3, including GDP. Some forecasts predict only 4.6% growth, below expectations. This data could subtly influence China's hot stock market, even if it reflects past conditions before stimulus measures kicked in. Lastly, let's talk about international oil prices. With Iran vowing to retaliate against Israel, there's growing speculation about how Israel will respond. The US is divided on whether to take strong action. Trump is all for hitting hard, while Biden suggests a more measured approach. The pressure is on Netanyahu, with leaders like Macron calling for an arms embargo against Israel, although he lacks significant influence. Also, US senators are questioning Netanyahu's timing, considering how it might affect American elections. So, next week's oil prices could swing dramatically depending on how Netanyahu decides to retaliate against Iran. If things escalate, it could lead to skyrocketing oil prices, putting a lot of pressure on the global market. Stay tuned as we monitor these developments. Next, here's an interesting news piece worth sharing, based on a Bloomberg report titled "Why Ranked Choice Voting is on November 5th Ballots in the US." With less than a month to go until Election Day, everyone likely has their own predictions about the outcome. This article breaks down the complexities of how voting works in the US and the different election principles that vary from state to state. For starters, some states use a winner-takes-all system, meaning if a candidate wins the majority of votes, they get all the electoral votes for that state. Others use a proportional system, where candidates receive electoral votes based on the percentage of votes they get. However, there's also a system called ranked choice voting that might be new to some folks, and it's definitely worth understanding. In most states, the voting rule is simple: whoever gets the most votes wins. Voters choose one candidate, and the one with the highest tally takes it all. But with ranked choice voting, you rank your preferences instead of just picking one person. So, you might say your first choice is candidate A, your second choice is candidate B, and so on. This way, all candidates get a shot at being counted. Here's how it works. In the first round, everyone's preferences are tallied, and the candidate with the fewest votes gets eliminated. Voters who pick the eliminated candidate then have their votes reallocated to their next choice in the second round. This process continues until one candidate secures a majority. This method allows every candidate to stay in the race longer and gives voters more options to express their preferences. So where is this ranked choice voting happening? Cities like New York, San Francisco, and Minneapolis, as well as the state of Alaska, use this system for elections. Maine also employs it for state-level primaries and federal office elections. Some states, including Hawaii, Kansas, Nevada, and Wyoming, have utilized it in the 2020 presidential primaries. On the flip side, there are states that strongly oppose ranked choice voting. States like Alabama, Florida, and Louisiana have banned this method in all or some elections. Interestingly, a few states are considering switching from the majority vote method to ranked choice voting. Colorado, Idaho, Nevada, and Oregon will allow voters to decide on this method in the upcoming election on November 5th. So why are some people pushing for ranked choice voting? Advocates say it gives all candidates a fair shot and helps avoid the polarizing effect of candidates who might be loved by some but hated by others. In a traditional majority system, a candidate can win with a lot of support but also have a lot of detractors, which could skew the results. Ranked choice voting gives those who dislike a polarizing candidate more options in later rounds. On the other hand, opponents argue that this system undermines the principle of one person, one vote. They feel that the straightforward process of choosing one candidate should be enough to determine the outcome without complicating things. This article sheds light on the fact that elections in the US are a complex system with various voting methods that can subtly influence outcomes. However, for now, the traditional majority voting system still reigns supreme, where the candidate with the most votes wins, whether through winner-takes-all or proportional allocation. It's definitely an intriguing aspect of American electoral knowledge. Thirdly, here's an important news update to share, which I believe many of you may have come across elsewhere or are already discussing. This report comes from The Guardian, titled "Communist China Not the Motherland," says Taiwan's president, "because our republic is older." The article covers a speech by Lai Ching-Te during Taiwan's National Day celebrations, which The Guardian highlights on its front page. Lai argues that the situation might actually be the opposite of what Beijing claims, asserting that the Republic of China's political system brought to Taiwan predates the establishment of the People's Republic of China. He firmly stated that the PRC cannot be considered Taiwan's motherland because Taiwan has deeper political roots. Lai, who took office in May, has faced condemnation from Beijing as a separatist for rejecting its sovereignty claims and declaring the island a nation known as the Republic of China, which originated in 1911 following the revolution that overthrew the last imperial dynasty. After losing the civil war to Mao Zedong's Communist Party, the Chinese nationalist government fled to Taiwan in 1949, while the PRC was founded. Lai pointed out that while the PRC celebrates its 75th anniversary on October 1st, the Republic of China will be 113 years old a few days later. Therefore, in terms of age, the PRC cannot be the motherland of the people of the Republic of China. Rather, it is the ROC that may be considered the motherland of the PRC's citizens over 75 years old. He emphasized that one of the key meanings of these celebrations is to remember that Taiwan is a sovereign and independent nation. Reuters also reported on this, highlighting that they tried to contact the Taiwan Affairs Office in Beijing for comment on Lai's statements, but no one answered, possibly due to the holiday. I'd like to share two thoughts on this news. First, Lai's remarks on the concept of the motherland have sparked significant reactions. I believe he isn't merely making a light-hearted comment, he's challenging the legal and logical foundations of the Chinese Communist Party's, CCP, decades-long policy towards Taiwan. The CCP has never governed Taiwan and bases its claim that Taiwan is part of China on historical logic. The CCP has constructed a narrative of a shared motherland, with the premise that this common heritage should unite the two regions. By emphasizing the idea of a shared motherland, the CCP asserts that it represents this identity and aims for unification. For years, their goal has been to achieve national reunification, with Xi Jinping advocating for complete unification under the one country, two systems framework. Historically, Taiwanese politicians have rarely challenged this narrative, often framing discussions of unification in vague terms. Lai's statements effectively dismantle the CCP's foundational logic and legal claims regarding Taiwan. By questioning the definition of the motherland, Lai essentially argues that the Republic of China is the motherland of the PRC. If we discuss national reunification, it implies that the mainland should return to the Republic of China, a notion the CCP would undoubtedly reject. This creates a significant challenge for the CCP in future discussions about unification, as it raises the question of which motherland is being referred to. As is often said in online discourse, while this might not greatly harm the CCP, it is deeply insulting. It calls into question their very understanding of the concept of a motherland. If they can't clarify this, how can they discuss reunification? The second point I want to make is that Lai's approach represents a shift from the one China policy to a one motherland, each with their own interpretation stance. This reflects his political acumen. The CCP has historically attempted to use the 1992 consensus to consolidate Taiwan, which asserts that both sides acknowledge one China, but allow for individual interpretations. Lai's introduction of one motherland, each with their own interpretation, offers a new layer of complexity. This could lead to significant internal strife for the CCP as they grapple with how to counter such a narrative. The question now is how they will respond and explain this new concept. Lai's clever framing adds flexibility to cross-strait issues, which shouldn't be underestimated. At last, here's an important news update from today's Bloomberg, which cites a report from the German publication Bild. The report indicates that Volkswagen CEO, Oliver Blume, has identified the threat of retaliatory tariffs from China. This comes as the EU plans to impose additional tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles due to perceived unfair subsidies. Bild reports that Blume is seeking alternative solutions to address the potential tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles, as he prepares for possible reprisals from Beijing. He emphasized that punitive tariffs pose significant risks for the German automotive industry, stating that they could lead to major disadvantages for Volkswagen in the Chinese market. Therefore, he firmly opposes such new regulations. I'd like to share a perspective on this situation. The German automotive industry finds itself in a precarious position. Previously, they managed to thrive by benefiting from both European and Chinese policies, supporting the prosperity during Angela Merkel's leadership. However, with the EU's recent decision to vote on new tariff policies, Germany's automotive sector is now caught in a bind. Cars manufactured in China will face tariffs when imported into Europe, treating them as if they were Chinese enterprises. If China retaliates against the EU's tariff policies, it will likely target German automakers first, increasing the costs for them to export to China. Additionally, China's non-tariff barriers have been a major headache for Western companies. Without raising tariffs, China can employ various soft policies to restrict sales of German vehicles, such as prohibiting government agencies from purchasing German brands or imposing new environmental standards that disadvantage foreign manufacturers. Volkswagen is feeling the pressure that China could impose restrictions on its operations. The transition from benefiting from both markets to facing losses on both sides reflects a significant shift that the German automotive industry may not have anticipated. Even if they advocate for lower tariffs on Chinese vehicles, the CCP will not consider them as insiders. The CCP's governance style does not allow foreign enterprises to truly belong, and even domestic private firms struggle to align with the party's interests. With Xi Jinping recently emphasizing the need for a Chinese face and heart, it raises the question of how German manufacturers can fit this narrative. This illustrates a disconnect in their understanding of China and may lead to unrealistic expectations regarding their role in the market. That's all for today. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more updates. I look forward to seeing you in the next one.